Hi, my name's Jeff Rhodes, and this is another video inspired by my book, Creating Business Applications with Office 365, which you can get on Amazon and other places, so come check it out here. Today, this isn't an example from the book, but something that just actually came up this week in my job at the Air Force Academy. We're heavy users of Teams, and what the requirement was is obviously we're trying to respond to COVID just like everybody else, and we've got a special team that has to do with that, and we've got various statuses. And what the requirement was is, hey, can we do a nice display page that will show everybody the current status and what the steps and the restrictions and so forth are at this moment. And we thought about SharePoint and these kinds of things, but there really wasn't a good way that would be easy for like the head person to go and just like change the status and then everything else would change. And so I came up with kind of a combined solution of SharePoint lists and PowerApps. And then my colleague Anthony Apodaca has been reading up on these new adaptive cards and teams, and so he showed that to how we can use that at the same time post to the channel to everybody the status has changed. We thought that was pretty cool. And then my other colleague Brian Gilbrick did some of the heavy lifting to make it work. So really a team effort, but thought I'd document this just in case it's useful for anybody else. So let's get started. I'll try to just recreate it from scratch. So let's, I'm in Office right now. Let's start with SharePoint. And there's my Academy one, but I'm doing this all in my personal one. So let's just go to, I have a sample site here. And what we really want, it turns out there's quite a bit going on as far as the different lists. So this first part will be really more a SharePoint exercise. So let's go and make a new list, and I'll call it just grins there to make it kind of match what we did already. I'll just call it COVID status options. Because what we want to do, there's lots of stuff that turns out we need to associate with the status. So I'm going to make one list with just the status options in it, and then another one with the status itself with some additional guidance, and then a third one with steps that go with each status. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So let's start with, there we go. So we're going to use the title, but I'm going to need some more columns as well. So I'm going to come in and we're going to do a single line of text. I'm just going to call it the color, because it turns out that we're going to want these colors to be some text there. And I'll add another one, which is the text color. And we don't really use it, but I'll put one more on there, and we'll just say, call it status number. That. And to make it easy, I'll just do this. I won't make it too much. We'll just say level 1, and we'll call that green, and we'll put the color in there as white. Like I said, we don't really need the number, but what we don't want to do here is we don't want to rely on text. So we'll see that we're going to do it numerically so that somebody can change the name of the status and not have it be brittle, where all of a sudden the whole thing breaks because we're doing text queries based on a particular set of text. So we want to be able to rename this to baseline or something like that. So we'll call that yellow. And this is why we had a text color, because it turns out none of them would work with all these, with the same color each time. So we'll do it, and we'll call that red. We'll go back to white, 3, and we'll call this level 4, and that's good enough. And we'll call it black, and we'll put this back as white, and 4. Alright, so there's number number one. So let's add another one. Just go add an app here real quick. We'll call it another list. And we'll call it COVID status. There we go. Hopefully these are in the same, yeah, so we've got the COVID status options. So let's go to COVID status. And we're not going to worry about permissions, but in the real one, we made sure the permissions that only the owners could edit it. And it's associated with a team, by the way. So then you have to change the default a little bit. So the team members, you know, which normally could be able to edit things, we turn that off. But all right, let's go ahead and put on our thing. So this is basically just going to be a one row table. So we're going to put title. We'll just name it. We'll just give that in there. But the most important is that we're just going to add a status, and we're going to make that a lookup column, and we're going to look up COVID status options. Now we're going to read all this from PowerApps, so it's important that we get our other things. We need to make sure we read the color, the text color, and the ID. So we're going to take advantage of that ID. So we'll put that in there. And this is actually the one that the head people are going to go and edit that. So we're going to just call this current status. And then they get to pick, and we'll just start it as level 1 for testing. And we'll just do that. So that's our interaction. So we'll come in, and what the user will do is come in when there's a new status, they will change this, and that'll drive everything. So we'll put a flow on here and that kind of stuff as well. All right, so let's do our last SharePoint list. And we're going to call it COVID mitigate, if I spell it right. And the idea here is that we're going to link in, and they just pick a status that goes with it and then give a title and a description. So we already have a title. So let's go ahead and let's first put the status in there. It's going to be just like the one we did before. So we're going to link it to COVID status options. And it turns out we really don't need the color and all that here. So we're just going to grab the title and the ID. So that's all we need. And then we'll add one more. Oh, sorry, we need to, whoops. Didn't need to do that. Let's go back to the list settings. I need to add, and we'll call it description. Now it turns out that I want to use a table in here, so it's nice if I don't really need rich text, because then I have to do some different things. So I'm just going to make it plain text here, which is good enough. Oh, and actually reminds me something I forgot in the other list, so we'll put that in a minute. Well, let's finish this one first. All right, so what we want to do, oh, actually let's go in and go to list settings again. One thing I really like to do in my SharePoint lists is get everything in the right order. So since it started with title on the left, I want to move that over. So I'm going to put status first, and then title, and then description is 3, and then I don't even really need to show the ID, but I'll leave it there. And then I'll probably, while I'm here, go ahead and sort by status and then sort by title, and that just makes it kind of clean. So that'll take care of this part, even though it didn't for whatever reason. Let's refresh that. Maybe I didn't. Didn't seem to take. Let's try it again. Maybe I didn't save for whatever reason. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't hit save, so you probably noticed that while I was doing it. So let's move that. Let's move description is 3. I forgot to hit OK. Oh, it took that. Just didn't change the order. So let's try that again. There we go. But notice if I hit like new here, that won't be in the right order. So how do you fix that? We might as well go and do that at the same time. So go to list settings, go to advanced, allow management of content types, and then now we can click on content type item, change the column order, and put the status first. Notice it doesn't put status ID because that's a lookup. You can't edit it anyway. There we go. So that's kind of nice because now if I bring it in there. Oh, and that's the other thing I don't like though. See how then I have to pick the content type. So let's go turn that off again just to make sure everything's how we want. So in the old version of SharePoint you didn't have to do that, but now you have to turn it out because you don't really want to pick the content type. So, all right. So we just pick level 1, and we'll put in, remote teaching up to 50%, something like that. Save, and just do the rest of them here, but you see the idea. So we'll say level 2, let's just call it dining out, in person, and takeout. Something like that. And we'll try, say if we did a level 2, we may have our remote teaching can shift to remote and go over 50%. There's no limit, I'm just making up numbers there. And we'll maybe say, if we go, we'll say dining out. We'll say takeout only. Something like that. Alright. Okay, so we've got all our pieces in place. So our next step is to go over to PowerApps and read this data. So let me find PowerApps. There we go. So I'm going to make my own Canvas app from blank, and I'll just call it COVID status. And I'm going to make it nice, and we're not really intending to do it on the phone, even though you could, but we're mainly intending to show it as a tab inside of Teams. So I want to make it nice and big. I don't need any of this stuff. But the first thing we're going to want to do is we need to add our 2 lists. So we're going to go SharePoint. I have to remember it looks like it's the samples directory, which it needed, and I'm going to add, turns out I don't need the status options because I linked them, but I need these 2. So I'm going to grab both of those. And let's first put a nice banner on the top. So I'm going to insert a label, and I like to name these normally, but I'm not going to take the time on the video to do it. So, and what I'm going to do here for the name is I want to go ahead and grab, instead of doing the text, I want to grab it from my list. So the first thing I got to figure out is how am I going to find the row? So let's go back and look at this list. So this is status, which I don't see. I got code status options, but I don't have the status there. So let's go look at that one. So I'm always planning on this to being the first row, and I'm going to try to read this data. So there's a function for that. Whoops, I gotta go to the right spot. So we call that first. So I'm just going to grab the first row, and then of COVID status. Whoops. Wasn't quite what I wanted. There we go. And then I want to read status. And then that's a record dot value. And you can see it's called level 1. So that's good. Not quite formatted how I want. Notice what I love here is that you can highlight status and it'll show you all the stuff that it is. So you can see it's a table, and then I can grab the first row and it shows me all the stuff that I can do. And you can see these are records, which is why I had to say dot value. So that's cool. And we'll format it in a minute. The next thing I want to do is I want to get the color. So that's the fill. And I want to do very much the same thing. But watch, I didn't think it would work because this is the string of light green, not the color green. But let's first get that in and then see how to fix it. So it won't work exactly right, but we'll say first. So we do still do COVID status. Dot, oh, not text color, dot color. And even if I say dot value, still won't do it. That's because it says green, we can see, but just because it's green doesn't mean that it can figure it out. Now luckily I've looked it up, and there's, if we were doing like a number and it was text, we would just say value. So there's actually a color value function. We'll see when we get to flow that we don't have one. So we got to do some different things, but that's pretty cool. So notice now, once I say color value and then do all that, it works. So that's pretty cool. It's like, woohoo! All right. So all we really got to do is just a little bit of formatting now to get it. So we're gonna center this, and we're gonna make. Oh yeah, we don't forget we got to set the text color as well because it's already black. But we'll let's make the font nice and big, like 32. There we go. And let's go over to. So let's go back to fill. And just copy that because it's going to almost be the same. And so we'll go to color, I believe, is what that it does. And this is going to be, instead of color, it's going to be text color. That. There we go. So first thing done. Great. Oh, and that reminds me, so let me save this. So we'll save. Reminds me that I didn't, I had another change that I wanted to make to this list. So when we showed it to the customer the first time, he said, oh, we'd like to have some additional information that's not necessarily dependent on the status, but just like additional guidelines. And we want that to be, when we get to the part of posting to the channel, we want that to show there as well. Like, okay, cool. What we need to do is put it in this row. So we're going to say add column. I'm going to make it multiple lines of text, and I'll call it additional guidance, like that. And let's see, I got more going. So I'm going to do, yes, enhance rich text, so they can put some nice stuff in there. Great. And again, while we're at it, let's go ahead and just fix the thing, because I like to change the view. Put that additional guidance right after the status, so it should be number 3, like that. And we'll go and change the content type. It's kind of repetitive, but might as well get it right. Change the column order. Oh, actually, I didn't need to do that anyway because I forgot, because the other things in between were all the lookup columns. So, actually didn't need to do that, but that's okay. Let's set it back. All right, so let's put some stuff in there. So I'll just edit this so I get a nice, because I need this good editor. So we'll just say additional go ahead and let's put some numbered list in here. And we'll just say wash hands, 6 foot social distance, and wear a mask. And let's put that one in bold. Make it orange just to kind of see how it comes through. Okay, great. So let's go back to PowerApps. Now I've got to go and let's see if I can get this to read okay. Come back here and refresh that data. Okay, so hopefully that it'll pick up that new column. If not, we'll just save and come back in. Because the next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and put that in there. So, oops, I want to come there. That's what I want. So let's insert, and notice here I'm going to go ahead and do HTML text, because I know that when I did rich text in SharePoint, it's going to do HTML text here. So we'll make it something like that. Again, I would name it, but we'll do our same first. COVID status. This is where we'll see it. Yeah, great, it grabbed it. And notice how it's reading it. See how we can see that HTML, but it gives it nice and big. It's a little small here. You can't see it very well because I'm kind of zoomed out. But if I move over, you see it's picked that up pretty nicely, so that's nice. All right, so the last bit that we want to, actually there's two things. We'll show off a little bit for our team, you know, for some of our other stuff. So we'll do that, but we mainly want to put the table. So let's do the table next. So I'm going to say data table, and I'm going to tell it this is COVID mitigation steps is their first thing. So let's grab it and put this where we want it to be. I'm going to leave a little bit of space. I want to put something at the bottom. So we're going to do some stuff, and notice it already picked up our levels and our description and so forth, and then we can just get rid of the ones that we don't want. So we can just remove that. And I don't need the status ID either, so I'm going to remove that. Whoops. But notice it's got all of them. It's got, you know, 2 remote teachings and all. That's because we're not filtering it, but we can go to our items here. So we're going to filter, and we're going to say, oops, not dot, and this is our condition. So we're going to say status ID equals, and I want to make sure I want to get that same one from our first line of COVID status, its ID. And this is where we're relying, we don't want to go on, I mean, even though they look up, we could use the text, but it's just a little simpler to use the numbers there that go with it. And, oh yeah, because I need some values here. Let's see, so. Actually, it got an ID and a value. Let's see if I can do. There we go. So notice what we've got. It's only giving me the ones that went with level 1. So exactly what we want. I can set some borders and stuff, but I won't take your time with that. Last thing that was kind of interesting on this is we'll do one more HTML text because we wanted to say, okay, let's go ahead and link to the team if we wanted to. So we've got like, so the easiest way to do that is the rich text here. So and this is where you got to know your HTML. We'll say, you know, COVID cell number 5551234, and we'll say a little bit of strong team and, oh, and by the way, a little trick there, if you where's my ampersand here? There we go. So that bit is a space in HTML, so it's kind of nice. You can put those in a little bit to space it out a little bit. I don't know if you can see it down here. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see how it gives us a little space there. And then what I want to do, if I could pull up Teams, which I haven't done, but I made a channel for this team. So if I want to get a link to the channel, it's this whole big long thing. So let's say if because they may get this from another spot, so if we can link to the team. So we'll say anchor href equals. Now it turns out we're inside of double quotes. So if I put this in single quotes, it'll work better. And I don't really need to set a target, so I can just say click here and close the anchor tag. Looks like I need a little bit of space here too, so I probably could use another one of those in BSP. There we go. So if we can see it down there. All right, let's save and publish that. By the way, we put a different color and so forth, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. So I think you can handle that one, and it's already shared. So let's go over to Teams. So that'll be our next one. Let's go in and go to PowerApps. See if I can see with that. Oh, okay, I don't think I need that. There it is. So I just pick it. Make sure that you share it with everyone so that everybody in this team can do it. There we go. And notice if I click to the team, then that should bring us in, open with Microsoft Teams, and bring us right back to our team. So that's kind of cool. Now let's go test it, and then we'll go do the flow. So let's go back to COVID status and change this to level 2. I should probably go out of that team and come into it again. There we go. So you can see we're takeout only level 2 with this additional information is still the same because that's independent of the status. It's part of that, but it will come in. So, all right. I know it's taken a while, but let's finish the last part. So the last thing we want to do is get a post here. And I'll probably remove this one just so we don't really need that. It was just when I added the tab, that was the default. See if I can delete that. There we go. So it's nice and empty. What we want to do is go to Flow and see if we can get it to send us an adaptive card each time that this status gets updated. So let's jump over to that. So we'll go back to Office, go to what used to be called Flow, now called Power Automate. So I wish I'd have known that before I did my book, but that's all right. So we'll do Create. I'm just going to build this one from scratch. So I'll do an automated flow. And when an item is modified, item or file is modified in SharePoint. That's what I want. And I'll just call this over here post updated status, COVID status. All right, so I should be able to pick this out. I think it was in samples. Hopefully we'll find out. There we go, COVID status, and I don't need a folder, so that's good. Next step. So what I want to do is I'm going to need some variables. So initialize variables. So what I want to have is I want to have, let's see, I guess an initialize variable, that's what I want. So I'm just going to call it COVID status, and it's a string. And the reason I'm doing this is it's easier if I read it in and then I'm going to put that in the card. So I'm going to read that, and it's going to be the status value. Remember, the title just says current status, but I want to have the status value. All right, so that's the first one. I'm going to do this again. Variable, and I'm going to initialize the variable again. And this one I'm going to call it the color. Because what, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, there's not a color value function like we have in PowerApps. So I can't just go straight from the value of green or whatever into that. So I'm just going to give it I'm just going to call it default. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the best we could come up with was really a switch statement to look up and try to, compare the text and make it a color value. So let's put that in, if I can spell switch right. All right, so default, let me get this right. So if it's green, remember that was one of our choices, then I'm going to add an action here, and I'm going to set variable. And the variable I'm going to set is color, so the one that I created up above. And the value that I'm going to set is good. Because this will correspond to some of the various colors that we have inside there. Alright, looking good. So we're going to add another case. So this will be yellow. So you can kind of see where we're going. We'll set variable. Let's see if I can get a little closer this time. And again, we'll set color. We'll set that one to warning. Alright, add another one. Move it over here. This one will be red. So when it's red, we're again going to set variable. and it's going to be color. This will be attention. And we got one more. And that one's black. So the downside of this whole thing, of course, is that you'll have to, as we change the colors, it does have a default, so it'll get some color, but it won't. It's not as great as the PowerApp solution where we got to just whatever color, as long as they could figure out the text. So if you called it aqua blue, it would probably figure it out. This one we're going to have to go into this flow and mess with it. So maybe eventually they'll have something, but we'll just call that one dark. And then last thing but not least, we set the default. Then, yeah, so we're all good. Okay, so let's keep going. Now we can do the fun stuff. Now in testing it, let's see if I can go, made it kind of big here. Let's find, there we go. New step, there we go. So it turns out that we need to go HTML. So we're going to content conversion HTML to text. So it didn't really like the rich text once we put that in there. So what we're going to do is grab out of here the additional guidance and, oops, oh, it's like I shouldn't have kept clicking on it. There we go. And so that puts it in the right format. And now we're going to do adaptive as a flow bot to a user. So that's what we want. Oh, actually not to a user. Get rid of that. Yeah, we want to do adaptive still, but we want to do it to a channel. We don't want to wait for a response. So yeah, flowbot to a channel preview. There's the one. All right, so now I got to find my teams. I got the Platte Canyon team, and I have the COVID response channel. And then I have this message. And then now I've got to put this whole card in here. Let's see. All right, so the question now that we're here is we could just put some text in there, but I want to point you to a Microsoft article. So they've got these adaptive cards and the different things that you can do, image share, lead collection, and so forth. And it just shows you different ways, like putting text blocks, and you can even do polls and images and so forth. So on each of those, you can go to there and copy and then edit it. Now, I mentioned Anthony, who figured this all out for me and showed it to me. So rather than trying to go from scratch, let's just take his. Oops, where'd it go? Oh yeah, I'm in Flow. Darn it. Okay. If I take what he already created and paste it in, you'll see that it actually is already all set up there. So there's that COVID status block, and the color, there's one of the colors that we mentioned, and then hit a rich text block and put in this plain text. So that should be it. We'll test it in a minute. Now notice this flow checker tells me I've got an error. Oh, and it points it on the switch. So let's go back to switch here. Yeah, and I didn't tell it actually what variable to read. So I want to read the color value and then post on that. So let's see if that, let's save it. Valid. Oh, it probably didn't like. Let's get rid of these, and I'll put the one in. I think it pasted the one there. See if I can do that. It just didn't like the values that I pasted in. There we go. Let's get rid of that. And this one is color. So because of that, it probably doesn't like this one either. So let's put that in again. Oops. All right, let's try that and see if it likes it. All right, so we'll save it. Go over there and let's try it and see what happens. So we'll come in here and go to our COVID status, and we'll change it. I'll change it to level 2. And we'll go over to, let's go over to flow first, see if we ran anything. That's the one I had tried before, which was when I was playing with it. Let's refresh it again. I'll bring up Teams as well, see if we got any kind of post yet. No. Let's refresh it. Let's go over and just see if we got any errors on it. Okay. Oh, it did. It failed. So we can click on this, see what it said. All right, it doesn't like something in here. It's missing. Specified flowbot request is missing. All right, well, I'll pause for a minute. It's already a little long. See if I can fix it, and we'll be right back. All right, well, let's try again. When I looked at the message, then I went to the bottom, and we had a bunch of stuff that somehow got at the bottom of this, and I think that may be part of it. So let's get rid of these things. The other thing I noticed is when I copied this in, the idea is I'm trying to go over to the channel from the post. So let's go ahead and fix that while we're here. So remember, we were on COVID response. If I go here, I can get a link to the tab. So I copied that over. Let's go back over and put that URL. That's not the error, but we might as well get that part right. So let's save it and try it again. We'll see if that has any more luck. We'll go back here and we'll edit that, go to level 1. Go look at flow, update all runs. Hasn't done anything yet. Still working. There it says it's running. So far so good. Hey, succeeded. All right, let's go over and look at Teams. Yes. All right, nice. Notice that it grabbed the green, gave the additional information, said that I sent it, and then if this worked right, it should take me right over to the status team. All right, let's try one more test, and then I'll let you go from this long video. So let's change it to level 2. Here. In this case, let's watch post inside of Teams, see if anything comes over. It should be a second. It should post automatically that there's been a change in the COVID status, and it should say level 2 with a new color. So we'll wait for that. This may take a little bit of time here. Let's go back to our flow here, see if we can stuff. There we go. Succeeded. There we go. So it's red now. Gives us that. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for your time. Kind of a long video, but thought that was a fairly cool solution. Thanks again to Anthony Apodaca on my team there at the Air Force Academy for figuring out all this flow stuff, and Brian Gilbrecht as well for helping out on it. And hope it's useful. Have a great day.